The Columbus Chamber's mission really simple: help businesses thrive. We believe if we help the businesses thrive, that's going to help us to have a thriving economy and be a great place to live, work, and play. And so that's the goal. That's the goal. And we do that through a couple of different ways. We talk about it from time to time, whether it's the connections that we're going to make with businesses or working with government. There's two major areas of our operations. One is government relations work, government advocacy, helping the businesses on government issues. Sometimes we call it government navigations, just trying to figure out who do I talk to, and can I get into that office? Can I talk with that person without having to go through all the different other processes that might be between you and them? And the other part is business services. The things that we can do to help a business grow. We can either do market research or help them with talent connections, or make those kind of direct connections, strategic connections that are going to allow them to do a sale. We realize that. That's what it's all about, extra sales, profit, making it go in that direction. So one of the things that we frequently have heard is this desire to hear from other business leaders, and that's why we established the CEO Insights series. These are quarterly events, and the object here is to try to showcase some of our region's best and brightest executives. Whether they are with a Fortune 500 enterprise or one of the smaller companies. We want to make sure that people get the opportunity to kind of hear from them about what makes them tick and kind of how they have built their businesses. So we continue this series here today with John Lowe, who is marking his 5 years. Gosh, 5 years as CEO of Jeni Splendid Ice Creams. He's also a member of the, Jeni Splendid Ice Cream. I love the splendid part there, Splendid, okay. Jeni Splendid Ice Cream. He's also a member of our Chamber Board of Directors, which makes him one of my bosses, so let's be good to him today, okay? I know John will do a great job of letting us get some insights on kind of where he's been, how he got to here, and we can learn a lot from each one of these CEO opportunities. So first, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. For those in the audience who are going to tweet, I'll invite you to join the conversation online. We're using the hashtag CCCEOinsights. And the CEO Insights program would not be possible without our corporate partners. We're grateful for support from our presenting partners, Commerce National Bank and Columbus CEO, thank you ladies, as well as the Chamber's signature partners, Anthem, CareWorks Consultants, Inc., and the City of Columbus. Our leader partners are State Auto and Cassidy Turley. And we have several in-kind partners, including our friends at Dawson, thank you very much, who are allowing us to be here today. And with that, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Griffith, who is the president of Commerce National Bank. Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's been a fantastic morning. I'm curious, how many are returning participants to CEO Insights? How many have been here before?
Oh, that's great.
Phenomenal. And how many are here for the first time? Wow, that is fantastic. Getting the word out to connect with our community partners is really what we find most valuable in our partnership with the Columbus Chamber. Finding the opportunity to bring business partners together, to make a connection in the morning, and to walk away with something you can lead with, a story that you can share, a connection you can make throughout the rest of your day. I think it's incredibly important. We believe very strongly that business begins and ends with people. Business partners do business with people first. And this is a morning to bring that home. It's to have access to the very human stories of a gentleman like John Lowe, wild success, who has started here in Columbus, studied at Ohio State, is a member of a fantastic firm here in town, and carried on his career into something else. We're going to hear his story, and I hope we're all going to find a connection and engage with some great conversation afterwards. So we are blessed to be a sponsoring partner. We're going to continue to be a sponsoring partner because we think this is really important. And with that, I'd like to make introductions to Ms. Kristen Hartman and John Lowe.
Good morning, everybody. Can y'all hear me? Wonderful. Okay, want to start out with a little bit of housekeeping. You all received one of these index cards at about 8:40 this morning. I'm going to ask that we collect them, so if you have a question for John, we'd love for you to put it on here, and then we'll take the questions that way. All right, I'm just going to jump right in. So everybody at some point in their career finds themselves at a crossroads. For you, John, it was GE ice cream. GE ice cream. So tell us, how did you get to the point that ice cream won, specifically Jeni's?
Well, I never would have dreamed of ice cream. I consider myself one of the luckiest people in the world. But first I have to say, there are so many friendly, familiar faces in here. This feels like a bad episode of This Is Your Life, right?
I like to say inside the actor's studio.
The punked version, maybe. So I hope Kristen has a lot of questions here today so we don't have to actually take any from this crowd. You know, I loved GE. It was a phenomenal place, and I thought I would stay there forever. During the height of the financial crisis, personally, it was really difficult. I was traveling constantly. I had a bag packed at all times. And I began to think, maybe I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And there was so much about GE I loved, but the personal toll was meaningful, especially during that period. The night before our second son was born, we were staying at a hotel near Riverside. We had driven back to Columbus from Cincinnati, where we had just moved back for a second time for GE. And I was in the hotel room. My wife was at the hospital to be induced the next morning so that I could be there. And my first son fell asleep, and I went into the restroom, the bathroom there, and I put the toilet seat down, and I was doing a PowerPoint presentation on why we should acquire this business in Wichita, Kansas. And I found myself downplaying the attributes of this business in Wichita. And I realized, I had that aha moment, that I was worried GE was going to say, that's great, go buy the business and go run it. And I was going to have to turn to my wife and say, Wichita, right? And you know, when you're in a relationship, you know you've only got so many of these you can use. And I had used a whole lot of these for that. My wife frankly, was the better of the two of us as lawyers, and the smarter, and we had shaken her out of a number of great jobs, and Wichita was going to be a tough sell. So I began to think, like, I can't do this forever. I got to begin to think about what would life look like outside of GE, and I began to flirt with a few companies outside. And out of nowhere, absolutely out of nowhere, Charlie and Jeni called me late one night and said, come back to Columbus and be our CEO. And I was flattered, and I thought, that's amazing. I love you guys. What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? How many shops do you have now? And they said 4. I was like, guys, I love you, but like, you know, you got 4 shops, you can handle that. And they have a special, there is some special sauce in the two of them, that they knew they had created something spectacular, and they knew what they were very good at, and they knew what they wanted to bring in. And there aren't many entrepreneurs that are that smart and that self-aware, and they deserve tremendous credit. And Charlie tells a story that they had talked about being a CEO for some time, and they had tried a couple of things that hadn't really worked, and they were laying in bed, and he said, not talking about that at all, and he turned to her and said, John Lowe, and she said, yeah, go call him. And Charlie got out of bed and called me, and that was their level of discussion before the phone call.
So from 4 stores to more than that now, to really national retailer, wholesaler. How'd you go from that point to Z?
Seth Godin, the great marketing guru, tells the story of the quantum leap. And he uses as an example, in the 1950s, there were thousands of mom and pop bowling alleys around the US, thousands of them. And he asked the question, how many of those mom and pop bowling alleys became a 10 bowling alley chain? And the answer is 0. Not one became a 10 bowling alley chain. And he explains or posits that the skills and the things needed to be a successful single bowling alley are entirely different than a 10. First of all, mom and dad go into hock totally with their house, everything they have, to fund the initial bowling alley, right? They lease the equipment from Brunswick probably, they get the bank to fund that first one, And they do everything they can to make it successful. They know their customers, they keep it clean, they are fully in hock. They couldn't be more invested in the success of that bowling alley. But to get to 10, you need an entirely different set of skills. First of all, you need capital, and mom and pop aren't set up for that because everything they have is in hock for number one. And then you need people that are paid the equivalent of $9 an hour back in the 50s to keep it clean and treat customers great and act like they are fully invested in that bowling alley, although they're getting paid an hourly wage. So it is a quantum leap to get from one to the other, and not one made it. I tell that story to our Team Jeni's members all the time because we are in the midst of that quantum leap. And as I tell them, we are screwing up more things than we're getting right, but with some very dedicated folks, with a lot of energy around sort of consciously deciding to make that leap, we're having a level of success.
So I don't see any gray hair, but what are the worries along the way when you're doing this, when you're growing something?
She's not looking very hard. What are the challenges along the way?
Challenges and worries, if you have them.
I certainly have them. You know, there's what I love about business is there are unending variables, and that makes it really exciting, right? That's a positive spin on life, right? When we opened up our first shop in Chagrin Falls, our first shop outside of Columbus, it was a very calculated. We want to see if we're smart enough to carry out a great shop outside of our backyard. And we wanted to go to downtown Cleveland, and we couldn't find a spot that we felt made sense. And we ended up in Chagrin Falls, this great community, affluent suburb. And we thought we had everything covered. We had designed this gorgeous shop. And when it came time to hire a team, we couldn't find people that were going to be great ambassadors at the shop. And we realized like it was going to be difficult to find people in this affluent suburb who were going to work for our wage and do the things we needed to create fans there and provide tremendous service. And it was like one of those moments where like, God, we thought we'd figured out everything, and now we can't find the people we need on this team. We had to expand the places we were looking. But the point of that is like there are so many spots along the way. Every day, you know, you come across those bumps in the road. And too often I think people think that the magic of Jeni or of any business is sort of that initial idea. And that is probably true in certain tech businesses. But for us, like the magic is in the continual decision making. That's where you determine whether you're going to be success, not in that the first decision to make the world's greatest ice cream is real important, right? But to have ultimate success, it's those small decisions along the way.
Okay. You talk about finding people and the challenge of finding people. Is there a challenge in keeping people, and how closely tied to that is culture that you create?
Well, finding people is really difficult. We have found keeping them is much easier, right? And Jeff Immelt at GE used to talk about anyone at GE could leave GE and go make more money elsewhere, which I at the time thought was weird because GE was known for sort of paying at the top of the scale. But his point was there, you were getting experience doing things no one else could train you to do, and so you could take those elsewhere. I use the same phrase at Jeni's, but for a totally different reason, right? We pay below sort of market because we're in startup mode still. And that's true at the top, right? Jeni makes less than Jeni is worth. I took a 65% pay cut to leave GE to come to Jeni's. And that's not true at every level of our company, but we aren't paying what a lot of places people could go make. But we think that we're creating something that energizes people. If you can't love coming to work for a great little ice cream company that's trying to become trying to improve the world, trying to make the world's greatest ice cream on a national or global stage, then what energizes you, right? What could be better than coming to work at Jeni's every day, we suggest. And we try to come up with, right, whatever you're doing, right? But we try to come up with some fun ways of engaging the group, right? Jeni created from the very earliest days company lunch, which at the start was
what is it called? Company lunch?
Company lunch.
Okay.
Lunch. And Jeni would make spaghetti at their apartment for the team when she was a single booth at the North Market. Today, that lunch is a little more spectacular at our office, but it is a chance for everybody in the company to come together and interact and talk and have some connection beyond just the work that they're doing, the silo that they're in. And then maybe our most popular is after you have worked at Jeni's for 3 years, we have a 1-month paid sabbatical. And the idea for that is we have a whole bunch of people that are with us sort of as a temporary stop on their career. They want to be a rock and roll star. They want to be a great artist. They are paying their bills through Jeni's while they pursue another dream. And we want to sort of empower them to go write the book or do the things they want to do after they've been with us for a while. And I think that has gotten a lot of attention internally, at least, as making us a great place to work.
You talk about a 65% pay cut. You talk about 4 stores. How attractive was the risk part of it, that jumping into something that really wasn't unknown?
It was not particularly attractive. I come from a...
Challenging?
Yes, challenging.
Okay.
I come from a much different mindset of, a long career, pay the mortgage, pay off the house sort of mentality, right? Yeah. And so the risk was a big thing to get my head around. I will be honest, the backup plan was pretty simple. My wife would go back to the firm she had worked at in Columbus and continue to pay the bills if I ran the company into the ground. So, people ask, what's important to entrepreneurs, and I say marry well.
We'll keep that in mind.
Right. So yeah, but frankly, it was more risky than I wanted to admit to myself because I wanted to do it so bad. Charlie and Jeni are a special group, a special couple that I put on, there are a handful of people in this world that I could have bet it all with, right? 4 college buddies and those 2. And so when they called, it had a special meaning. And I believed in them. First of all, Charlie, who doesn't get enough attention or focus, incredibly strategic, analytic brain, and one of the great people of the world, friendly, trustworthy, etc. And Jeni, all of those things, but also a unique force of nature, truly creative, innovative in a way that comes around very seldom. And it was my belief that we were making a world-class product, maybe the best ice cream in the world, and from that we should be able to create a wholesale business. The stores they had, we had terrible financial information, but it appeared that they were probably making money, and we thought from that we should be able to find more locations. And then it was a belief that there was more to Jeni's ability, in my mind, than we had seen yet, and that if I was smart enough to build a team around her, we could get more out of this amazing brain. And some days I think we've done a great job of that, and some days I think there's a lot more we should be doing.
Well, if you've ever had salty caramel ice cream, like me, you know that the quality, Jeni's equals quality. Is there pressure sustaining that?
I would look at it slightly different.
Okay.
There is no other way but to sustain it. There is no place in the world for Jeni's if we aren't the best. There are thousands of commodity ice cream companies. And the nice thing and the worst thing about ice cream is that even the crappy stuff's pretty good. You mix enough sugar and butterfat and good things happen. And like we joke all the time, like there's nothing wrong with stopping at Dairy Queen. Not that, you know, it's like it's good. But we have to be really elevated. And if we drop in quality, we should go bankrupt. And I say that as sort of stern as that sounds, I mean it. And so it is easy for us to keep the focus on quality. And frankly, there's no other way. That's all that Jeni thinks about. She is a pit bull about the quality of our ice cream. And that makes my job really easy. We don't have to worry about cutting corners to grow because there's no reason for us to do that. We would go bankrupt, but we don't have to debate it either because that's just not who she is.
So I'm just curious, is there a lot of taste testing then?
Every once in a while. So I probably eat less ice cream on a daily basis than people would assume. But it is a great day when Jeni, this has happened 2 or 3 times, like my door flies open to my office and she comes in and pounds a pint of ice cream on the table and says, "You got to try this." And, you know, like sort of, you know, in my head's in something else. I stop what I'm doing and taste it and I say, for Eskimosi dark milk chocolate specifically, I said, "Yeah, that's great." She's like, No, that's not great. It's like, "That's amazing." She may have sworn. And I said, "Yeah, this is amazing." She's like, "That's amazing, right?" I was like, "That is amazing." She's like, "We've got to sell that side, so we've got to sell this." And she walks out, and like as she's leaving, she like sort of looks over her shoulder. She's like, "'Cause I'm told the cogs on this are outrageous." You know? You know? And so to this day, I say we can never stop selling Eskimosi dark milk chocolate. One, because I know that my wife won't leave me as long as she has access to Eskimosi. But I ask that you not buy it because I think we're probably subsidizing it by $1 a pint.
So taste is obviously one way to make a customer connection. What are the other ways? Because it's so important to what it is that you guys do.
Well, you know, we look at social media as an opportunity for opening up who we are as a company, right? Michelle Mooney at Resource wrote a book a number of years ago called The Open Brand. And it's a great read, but the point is simple and real. In today's world, you're an open brand, whether you want to be or not. It is a real distinct advantage to us to be an open brand. And the reason is we are being copycatted left and right. Across the country, companies, some backed by venture capital with a marketing idea, some want to be Jenis that have the book and want to try to be the next Jeni. It is important for us to show that we are a real company with real people, right? Our number of employees use their name at Jeni's in Twitter and Instagram and the like, as a very calculated effort by us to show that we are a band of real people trying to do something bigger than ourselves, and we're not just a marketing idea or a concept backed by some venture money. And that, you know, I think makes us somewhat unique in the world we're trying to play in, and I think a real advantage to us. So we want our social media and everything we do to be showing that and then showing inside our kitchen. We call it a peek into the kitchen. When you see the way our ice cream is made compared to others, it's easy to understand, A, why it costs more, and B, why it tastes so much better.
So when we began this conversation, I jumped right into that juncture that you found yourself at, GE or Jeni's. But I want to go back to when you were a kid now. And when you were 10, did you say, "I want to be the CEO of an ice cream company"?
I did not. I think I had 2 passions growing up, basketball and politics. Both eventually broke my heart. I think I wanted to be a campaign manager more than anything when I was growing up. I was born south of Chicago. You're stamped a Democrat as you come out of the womb, and I spent a lot of time helping unsuccessful Democrat candidates. If you can't work for somebody who gets elected as a Democrat south of Chicago, you ought to get out of politics. And so I did law school, all right? And so it is a little insane to think back to when I was 10 and what I dreamed of doing versus what I ended up doing.
Mm-hmm. What is success rooted in, though, when we go back to childhood? Do you think that's where it's rooted?
Well, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people talk about, like, how do you define success? And if it's driving a fancy car, I'm not doing so well, but I think I'm doing pretty well. My folks here, they were possibilities. So when I was growing up, first of all, my parents come from what's the PC phrase we use now? Humble beginnings, right? Mm-hmm. And certainly I, growing up south of Chicago, there was a sort of generational, you want to sort of do better for your family. You want your kids to do a little better. I certainly grew up with that as the goal. And then my folks, put so much into my brother and I, saved money so we could move to the next town over to go to a slightly better high school. My dad coached every sport I was ever in, etc. That remains sort of the whether I'm successful or not in my mind. Do I get to be a dad? Do I get to be a decent husband, etc.? And that career path I was on was very fulfilling in some ways, but pretty lousy in the things that were sort of core to me. So.
What, if there was one piece of advice that your folks gave you as a kid growing up that you have taken and used and run with over the course of your own adulthood in business, what was that, or is that?
I think business leaders of any kind they should be entirely comfortable in their own skin. Mm-hmm. And you don't see that, frankly, enough. But I think it's really important because there are so many times when you are making difficult decisions or decisions that affect others that if you are sort of comfortable with who you are, it makes life a lot easier. And I think I credit my parents with any level of that I have, and I think that a sort of inner confidence that comes from sort of unconditional love or support has enabled me to make decisions or be more successful than I otherwise would have been.
I found this interesting. Your office has the phrase, quote, "Can you imagine doing anything else?" on your wall. Tell us why that's there.
We're making ice cream. This ought to be fun, right? Like, so the story behind that is, when I started, Jeni was fond of saying there were 150 employees at Jeni's. There are 149 artists, and then there's John, right? And I had this very stale office that looked like my GE office, and after a while, I was like, I gotta change this a little bit. So I went to, and the other nice thing about being at Jeni's is we have these amazing chalkboard artists, and Lisa Stewart, who works in our office and is an amazing chalkboard artist. I said, would you cool up my office, right? Like, do something, maybe some chalkboard paint or something. And she found a plaque that had a quote from Bill Brown, who was a named partner at the law firm I started work at, and when I was a young lawyer, he and I had been in court, and we came out, and I was stressed out of my mind, right? All day I felt like I'd been taking body blows, and he was just the most lovable, affable guy there was, and he comes out and wants to head to a bar, and he's like, can you imagine doing anything else? Like, how fun is this, right? And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Like, Jesus. Like, so there, I had this plaque with a picture of him and just his affable, loving way, and that quote. And Lisa took it and put it on my wall, and at Jeni's it has an entirely different meaning. And it's, we're doing something big, right? We are this tiny little gang of Davids trying to take on Goliath. That's fun, that's cool. We've got a great mission. Let's make the world's greatest ice cream, however we call it, the best ice creams imaginable or whatnot. Let's make the world a better place. Let's use our power and scale to improve the world. Let's donate to the right charities. Let's support great causes, etc. Can you imagine doing anything else? Like, how amazing is this? Is the message I want our folks to hear. I don't have any idea what the question was, but hopefully that
You answered it. You talked about body blows, and that kind of lends to the next question. In your process, not just at Jeni's, but in getting there, were mistakes part of that process?
Yeah, you know, 3 or 4 times a week, sort of a major one. Look, the business case answer to our dilemma over the last 5 years, or as I came in, was to take outside investor money and go big, go quickly, right? We didn't do that. And I stand by that decision, but, you know, time will tell whether that was the right one. We delayed taking money because we wanted to make sure, A, we had something real and that we could replicate it. And so a very calculated move outside of our backyard to Cleveland, very calculated move outside of Ohio to Nashville. Is this working? Are we smart enough to pull off these stores? What's the reception when we get there, et cetera, et cetera. And then from there to other cities. That plan enabled others to figure out, oh, you can make ice cream with these names and people will come buy it. So that's enabled a whole bunch of copycats around the country. Now, I get to sleep at night because they're not making ice cream as good as Jeni is. But there's a lot of places you can go that now have stores that look like Jeni's, or that have chalkboards, or that have flavor names that sound a lot like ours or identical. And, and that has, you know, maybe that was a major mistake. I don't really believe it, but on a daily basis, we are faced with opportunities to screw up, and we swing and miss a lot. I believe in active learning. You know, you hear Les Wexner talk. He talks about active learning. I completely, I force that sort of thinking into our DNA because I believe in it. And so anyway, that's the long-winded answer to, yeah, we screw up all the time.
What's more important, gut instinct or experience in making those decisions?
I don't know that I really believe in gut instinct, right? Gut is based on your perceived expertise or what have you. And I want our decisions to be based on as much great information as we can get, and then I want us to follow our gut. And so, you know, whether it's taking on investor money or the like, we spend a lot of time and effort trying to get our heads around the issue and getting great advice and whatnot, and then we make a decision.
In leading the charge, what is the most important characteristic you as a leader should have?
I think that being adaptable as a leader is really important. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't know that I've ever said this publicly. I think I've said it over beer with some friends. My job in many ways is similar to an NBA basketball coach, head coach. And the reason, first of all, I think of Jeni as the Michael Jordan of ice cream, right? She's the best there's ever been, or ever will be. Apologies to LeBron James. And did I mention I grew up in Chicago in the 90s? And an NBA coach, the analogy for me is my job is to build a team around this superstar, right? I got to put the right people in place to get the most out of her. And the analogy continues that, like most NBA coaches, I'm really only as good as my star. And I get to lead, I get to be the CEO. But I don't know if on a technical matter she could fire me or not, but on a real world level, I got to have her with me, right? If Kobe Bryant doesn't like his head coach, bad things happen to that head coach. And so that analogy for me, like I got to be adaptable, or leaders have to be adaptable to their situation. And it was very different in leading GE businesses. You had to be very good at certain other things. The soft side wasn't one of them. And when I got to Jeni's, learning to communicate with these 149 artists took a very different set of skills or requirements than any I'd had to use at GE. Right? There weren't artists at GE. There were engineers. And they take in and process information much differently than the creative force at Jeni's. And it took me longer, frankly, than I care to admit, to sort of figure out how to communicate to them in a way that resonated with them.
Okay, I'm not done with you yet, but we have to interrupt the conversation just for a second to remind you, please fill these out. We're going to be collecting them very shortly, and then we'll open it up to your questions. But I want to know, as far as Jeni's, Columbus, why will Jeni's stay in Columbus?
Well, this community has been amazing to Jeni's, right? This community, first of all, made up of a great creative class that gets Jeni, an amazing group of civic and business leaders that are supportive of lots of great companies, including Jeni's. There's something special in the air. There is a level of collaboration. I think, think about a strong Democrat mayor, lots of, a great Columbus Foundation, Doug Kreidler, the partnership, Alex Fisher, that group that are working across party lines, across lots of lines to move Columbus forward. Kenny McDonald, like there is a phenomenal collaborative effort in Columbus. That is not true in Pittsburgh or Cleveland or Cincinnati or Indianapolis. And we're all really fortunate to be living in that time. Think about how awful it was when City Center died and how amazing it is today, right? That same plot of land in sort of government time frame, an extraordinarily short period of time that transformed, right? That's really cool. And the things happening on the river and downtown, and a genuine nationwide moving jobs downtown, and Columbus avoiding or correcting the donut that affects every other major downtown in America is amazing and cool. And so, we love the things going on in Columbus. This community was supportive of Jeni when she was a single booth at the North Market, making every batch and serving every customer. And this is home, right? Like, yeah, we could pick up and go to Nashville or some other city, but there are special things going on in Columbus, and I'm excited to be a part of Columbus over the next 20 years.
Speaking of over the next 20 years, what do you want to be able to say 20 years from now about Jeni's and how you helped it get to a certain place? Where do you want it to be?
Jeni and I are different in 1,000 ways, and it's difficult to find ways in which we're the same except one, and that is we are both ferociously competitive. And this is only fun as long as we are trying to do something big. If we're a 10-shop ice cream company and stagnant, there's no need for me. At the same time, I heard Les Wexner say this a year ago. He was motivated by a fear of failure, and he talked about keeping his shop clean while he was getting started and washing the windows and that sort of thing. That really resonated with me because a fear of failure drives me. And for me, the failure would be, I don't want to be 65 years old, laying in bed thinking, oh, we had a shot, and we didn't quite get it, right? Jeni was the single best ice cream maker in the world, and it was fun, but things didn't work out. Like, that motivates me on a daily basis. And frankly, I work hard to make that motivate our team, because the opportunity in front of us is so big. And the opportunity for us to be successful and make the world a better place is so large, I don't want to swing and miss. And that on a daily basis gets me out of bed.
All right, before we open it up to the audience, favorite flavor? Do you have one?
Sweet corn with black raspberries. That it's easy. If you've ever seen how it's made, our group of artisans hang plastic in our kitchen because they call it the kill zone, because they attack.
Kill zone?
Yes, they bring in fresh sweet corn, they clean it, shuck it, clean it, attach it to a drill bit, and then run it through a PVC pipe with teeth through it called the Easy Creamer. There's kernels flying everywhere. And then slowly mix in sweet cream, and it's amazing. It's the world's greatest ice cream base you could imagine, but you know, now that we've been, that Jeni's been making that for years, you can find sweet corn ice cream in about 10 different places across the country. Nobody's making it like that, right? Like, there's a reason that tastes so special. So I like bragging about that one because it tastes so good. It reminds me of childhood and sweet corn, and it's seasonal, and it's wonderful, and it shows sort of the way we make it compared to everybody else.
All right, fair enough. So now I open it up to the questions from the audience. And Holly, would you raise your hand, Holly?
Very nervous right now.
All right, there's Holly. And Holly asks, which Jeni's location is the busiest in Columbus and the surrounding areas?
Short North.
Short North, easily. I see lines there all the time.
Yeah.
That has to make you happy.
I believe that the Short North is the single best strip of real estate in a 5-state region. I can't prove that, but I believe it. I think it's tremendous. My friend and business partner, Charlie Bauer, has been on the Short North Business Association for as long as I can remember. Highball, a tremendous fundraiser for Short North Alliance. Our community, the partnership has supported Highball in the last several years in a way that is attempting to introduce or make sure people in the wealthy suburbs of Columbus understand this amazing thing going on in the Arts District, the Short North. And it's really great. It's really cool. It makes Columbus special. When we were trying to recruit a certain beer maker to set up a facility here in Columbus, and that's ongoing, but you just take them to the Short North and their view of Columbus transforms. And so there's the answer.
All right. You touched on this a little bit with social media, but, and this is an unnamed question.
Uh-oh.
How has marketing and advertising, how have they played a role in company growth and in expanding to other markets?
Well, put social media aside. We don't market and we don't advertise. You could probably count on a single hand the number of paid advertisements we've done in the last year. And some of those are just to support great little businesses like Edible Columbus that we love, but we essentially don't do paid advertisement. Either that's the right thinking, or we're making a huge mistake and we should be doing lots more. We donate to charities, and we like to think that that's great marketing and that people appreciate it and think positively about it, and we get some benefit while making the world a better place. But the business school answer is that we should be doing much more marketing and advertising. And I think that there is some opportunities for us to do that, particularly as we introduce ourselves in new cities, but we essentially do none. So it's done very little outside of social media. And I think, just to be clear, I think we do a spectacular job at social media, and I can brag about it because I have absolutely nothing to do with it being so fantastic. We've got an amazing digital leader, Ryan Morgan. Jeni herself has tremendous instincts around that. And our basic strategy of giving a peek into the kitchen was right. And you know, like, there's some things I can debate, but that one was right. And so that's been spectacular for us. And we have an amazing creative team that every day is producing great content. And then 3 days later, we get to see the identical picture from the copycats.
Fred Kaiser asks, how do you find or develop the people with the right soft skills or people skills to make great ambassadors for you?
I take tremendous pride in our service culture. And that starts from Jeni from the earliest days. She knew that she had to have an elevated experience, that frankly, the bar is pretty low. As you go eat in the world, the service is mediocre most times, but we had to have an elevated experience. There's one fact that I love to brag about. I will admit I checked it this morning to make sure I could brag about it today if it came up. If you go on TripAdvisor and ask for the single best restaurant in Nashville, Tennessee, it will tell you Jeni Splendid Ice Creams. And the reason, you know, the ice cream's phenomenal and world class, but the service is right up there with the ice cream. And we work really hard at finding great people, but then training them, and training them on the importance of explaining what people are about to eat when it's their first Jeni's experience. When you have Queen City Cayenne and you don't know what you're about to take in, it's a weird, at best, experience, right? But when our ambassador says, you're going to taste this rich, great, creamy milk chocolate, but then, or dark chocolate, but then about 2 seconds afterwards, you're going to feel a burn on the back of your throat, like, then you're thinking, oh, that was kind of cool, right? That is kind of amazing. I've never had that before, or I really like that. And so the importance of us explaining as we're serving is it's so differentiated, and others are trying it, but I think we've built a team under Jeni, and we spend a lot of time, Jeni does, and that team, in arming our people with the right information and then training them on it and working hard at it. And we're not getting it right every time, but we're getting it right more often than others.
Every one of these interviews that I've had the pleasure of conducting, I've asked about work-life balance. Well, Jason Messick is doing that for me today, asking, could you elaborate more on the importance of work-life balance for you and your team?
So I think, you know, it's different for everybody. There's some saying like work-life balance, like get over it, right? Like you're always working, and it's your job to fit in what's important to you. I don't know that I quite believe that, but it's really important to me to coach basketball and to be at my kids' events and whatnot, and I do it. And it's important to Charlie and Jeni and other leaders in the company, and so on some level we lead by example, right? I was terrified at different times in my career where I had a boss where that wasn't important, and me sneaking out at 6:30 felt, you know, like I had to fake a run to the restroom and then hit the elevator so I could get out, right? That's not what we want to do. At the same time, We all work incredibly hard. We all work really long hours.
How long is long for you?
I'll bet that there are more nights than not where Jenny and I are texting or emailing between the hours of 8 and 11 p.m. If you talk to my assistant, she would reveal the crazy email she gets from me at 4 in the morning, which reflects that I have 3 boys, one of whom seems to wake up in the middle of the night, and then I don't go back to sleep. And so the random things that are going through my head are being emailed to my assistant, and she's a wonderful person for dealing with it. So yeah, we're all working long hours. I am not a morning person by trait, but I've sort of taught myself how to be one. I have a group of running buddies. We try to run at 6 in the morning several days a week. When we have a simple rule, if you don't show up, we throw a brick through your window, which enables us to be morning people, right? You got to come up with ways of sort of helping yourself do the things you got to do.
You talked about being ultra-competitive, and here's the ultra-competitive question. What makes Jeni's end product superior to Graeter's, and why?
So I have nothing against the Graeter's company. They're a great business, and they make great ice cream. I won't answer it relative to others. I will tell you that I don't think anybody gets, from Jeni's very earliest days, she was focused on getting the best cream. I can't explain how difficult that challenge is. Lots of people around the country now call themselves artisans because they use a commodity ice cream mix and they mix in some fruit and they call it artisan ice cream, right? That's how Jeni started, and she always knew she wanted to get the great stuff. And so grass-grazed milk is really important, right? It's better for you, it has omega-3s, and it tastes better. And we have done backflips to get to aligned with places that we can get our hands on great grass-grazed cream. Jeni is ferocious about quality, so the way we make it, the way we are prepping ingredients, when we bring in, strawberries from Hirsch Fruit Farm, and it's all hands on deck, taking the green off, washing, cleaning, taking the green off, roasting, and then churning that into grass-grazed cream. Like, that's special. There's a reason it tastes so different, right? You can make a commodity ice cream by pouring in strawberry flavoring, right? And like I said, it's fine. It's ice cream. It's good. But to get to the best requires a process that's unlike anybody else. So then you add in Jeni, and I'll close with this story. She and I are in Nashville. We're staying at the Hampton Inn in downtown Nashville. We meet in the lobby, and I'm headed to the free breakfast, right? Because we both grew up humble beginnings. I'm frugal. You eat the free breakfast. And she says, no. We're going to, I'm blanking on the name. Sorry, the best biscuits in America. Loveless Cafe. Thank you all. We're going to Loveless Cafe. They make the best biscuits in America, and I think, okay, I don't think my palate's sophisticated enough to know a great biscuit from a pretty good biscuit. But all right. And I've learned you don't say no to Jeni anyway, so I'm along for the ride. We're there, and she's like, these are damn good biscuits, aren't they? And I'm like, these are very good biscuits. I have no idea. And she says, we should put these in ice cream, to which I think that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Who needs biscuits and ice cream, right? Pizza and beer, right? And, but I have learned you just keep your mouth shut when it comes to flavor development, and I do. Fast forward 6 months. It is our #1 seller, the first flavor ever to exceed the sales of salty caramel, right? And it's my personal favorite, right? So I stay out of her way. And what was the question? What am I talking about? That's why it's the best, because Jeni is an amazing palate, amazingly creative, and a force of nature, and we're able to be who we are because of that brain.
Final question from the audience. We're all mentors to somebody, most notably our children. So what lesson, what single most important lesson is it that you want to pass on to your children?
Oh.
And then their children and their children. That's pressure.
I moan because, on a very real personal level, that might be the thing that weighs on me more than anything. And that is like, we have a level of comfort that I don't think I think that I am failing to get across to my children the level of comfort we have versus the rest of the world. And I find it infuriating, frankly, that I am failing so bad to get that across. And now they're young, they're 9, 6, and 4, and so I still got time, but I want them to have a work ethic, a march forward, every day get out and go compete. And they've got it when it comes to basketball, and they're doing well in school, but I don't think they quite understand the battle that it takes to do well. And so that one, I hope I get that across over the coming years, but that's probably the thing that worries me the most. That was a little more personal than I intended to get today, but there you go.
Well, I think it's a great note to end on. John Lowe, thank you.
Thank you.
For being here this morning. And now, please welcome Mary Yost, of course, the editor of Columbus CEO magazine, to round out the morning.
Thank you, Kristen, and on behalf of the Columbus Chamber and the Columbus Dispatch Media Group and Columbus CEO, we want to thank John Lowe for your great insights. It's been wonderful. We can see why Jeni's is so open. You've been very open with us this morning, and we really appreciate that. These programs have all been great that way, and we have a couple more that are coming up that we hope you get on your calendars. On December 3rd, I can't tell you who will be here because it will be the winner of our CEO of the Year awards that we will be revealing in our December issue of Columbus CEO, and that will come out in early November. So you'll know soon enough, but plan now to be here on December 3rd. It's going to be another great program.
Go, John!
And
I don't have another hour in me. I'm done.
And then you also want to put February 12th on your calendar right now. That's going to be the Chamber's 2015 annual meeting, and JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon will be the speaker for that, so that's going to be wonderful. And tickets for that are on sale now. So thank you all for being here this morning. It's a great way to start your day, and we hope it's a wonderful rest of your day. And I like whiskey and pecans.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks so much.